Welcome, everyone. This is week 11 of week 16. And we have reached to a time where you all might be a little bit exhausted. The weather might be changing. The world is getting tough. And we want to hold the space today so you have the chance to discuss some of the things that you, as researchers, as leaders, as community builders, can use. These are some toolkits that have been very useful for us. And there are different words we will be using today, but the theme is how do we take care of ourselves and our community as researchers? What tools we have that we can offer each other? What spaces we need to have this conversation? I'm very excited today that you would have a chance to meet our fellow Maya Sundukova, who will be leading this call with me. In the call, we also have Shayon and Taj, who will be our co-facilitators. And I have also invited Precious, who will be also helping out in the chat. So you would see her messaging too. Please do share with us some of your tips. I'm going to read a couple. Some of you have shared your tips. So some people have said, I try to sleep as much as possible and share time with my kids, catch up with friends and family who are all far away. These are the things people do to take care of themselves. Taking a walk, hot beverage, and a movie, traveling and enjoying nature, taking a break, hiking, meeting friends, watching movie, reading a book I want to read, listen to audiobook, podcast, trying to adapt to winter in Vancouver, hard thing, but staying cozy, health. Well, hair care is another one. I just got my haircut done a few weeks ago and it makes me feel really great. So I completely relate to that. We will be doing some breakout today. So please do add your preference by putting W or S in front of your name. If you would prefer a French breakout room, and if we have enough people, please do add that. Thank you, Letitia. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and just walk you through where we are at today. So we are going to remind you of code of conduct. Our code of conduct applies to this call. If there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, unsafe, please let us know. You can email to the team by team@vrols.org, or you can also reach out individually to Bernice, Hyo, Taj, or I. If you have to report anything about Taj or I, email someone else. We're very happy to receive any kind of feedback you may have about this session. This session is, this can get a little bit sensitive to some people. So I want to tell you to be as discreet as you want to be, as open as you would like to be. If you don't want to share anything in the chat or notes, absolutely fine. If you feel like not talking today, that's absolutely fine. But we want you to be here. We want you to have this conversation with us, and we're very grateful that you're here. With that, I'm going to get started. Today's session is called Personal Ecology and Self-Care. And I've added a subtitle from Maya, which says Moving from Individual to Collective Well-Being. So I want to ask you something that you can share in the chat. What does the word well-being mean to you? What are some other words that you associate with well-being? I'll give you a few seconds. Please write in the chat. I would love to know, what do you mean by well-being, and what other words you associate with well-being? We have one response: feeling all right physically and mentally is the well-being. There's a lot of weight we carry when we don't feel well. So sometimes not feeling that weight is feeling well. Combination of mental, physical, and emotional health. Being able to work and live without anxiety. A lot of people relate with that. Live with that. Yeah, live without anxiety. Leave as well. I thought you were saying leaving a work or leaving a space without anxiety, which also works. Being in community and showing up for the people around me, good and bad. I think that's a very, very Powerful. Because showing up for others requires that we have showed up for ourselves first, that we feel powerful and confident enough and well enough so we can hold that space for others. Being able to work. After being on the other side of that, I understand how much blessing that is. Thank you, folks, for sharing these sense of happiness and satisfaction, sense of capacity to respond to my circumstances with the responsiveness. There's things that I haven't written in the slide, but I often show in some of my talks, which is about between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is our powerful choice and freedom. And I really relate to what Nathan you're saying, because if we don't have that space and space for choice and freedom to choose, it doesn't feel we're responding. It feels like we're reacting, and it doesn't feel very natural. And we don't feel agency. So thank you for sharing that. Keep sharing in the chat. I'm going to move on and I'm going to show you some of the things which are associated with well-being for me. And I'm saying for me because it could be completely different things for you, and you may resonate differently with different words. Mental health is defined as a state of mental well being that enables us to cope with stress of life, realize our ability, learn well and work well, and contribute to our community. So that is how I see mental health. This is a reference from World Health Organization that I brought, but of course, this can be defined in different ways. We also have come across words like self-care, taking care of ourselves, what we do to take care of ourselves so we can lead a healthy personal life and contribute to the work that inspires and fulfills us. This is from Mozilla Open Leadership. It's the first time in 2018 someone in the work context ever mentioned self-care. And that was very life-changing for me. I felt heard. I felt like nobody had ever discussed that, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to carry on these conversation in open seats. We wanted you to have this conversation if you've never had it, or we wanted you to feel that it's important to talk about it in your own workspace too. The last one I will bring, which is a new thing that I had heard in 2018, which is called personal ecology. Sometimes self-care just puts a lot of responsibility on individual to change things so things can be better. But personal ecology is about, it's not just about me, it's about where I am. So what we do to maintain our balance and pacing and efficiency to sustain our energy. So we can not just act today, but we can conserve our energy in a long time. Building community, engaging in community is not about one time. We require time and patience and space in a long-term sense. So it's important that we think about the energy that we're putting. Are we able to sustain it in the long term? I have another slide to like explain a little bit that ecology is about broader ecosystem, right? Like when we take care of ourselves, we think that it is my individual choice. But if you are well, people around you will be well. But if you can't have healthy, but you can't have healthy community if you're individually burnt out, if you're working too hard, if you're doing too much, if you don't have time to attend to your own needs, you will burn out. And burnout is characterized in occupational context by feeling energy depletion, increased mental distance, negativity towards job, or reduced professional efficacy. It is important that we realize and attend to that. Um, in Europe, at least, we have a lot of holidays, and I and my team really encourage people to take holidays. If they haven't taken, I ask them to go on break. If they have worked too hard, I ask them to take the leave. And I know that's not the case in all the countries. So I want to acknowledge that, but it's important that we do take break when we need it. They have broad consequence personally if not addressed. So uh, we we want to have that space in OLS at least to talk about burnout in an open sense. So I'm going to pass it to Maya now. So she can talk about the other part of the conversation where different things that resonate with her and that she wants to bring to here.
Thank- Voice suddenly disappeared. Thank you, Malavika. Each time when we have this session in OLS, it feels very special and very different, and it's really it's unique to have the space to discuss it within the context of learning something that you do for work and research. And I realized that almost none of you know me, so I will present myself. I also presenting some ideas that we will be using today, which come from narrative therapy and practice. And the narrative stands for the story. And the idea is that we people, we make meaning of our lives through linking the events into stories. And if you see these crosses, those represent the events. So today, at the 27th of November in 2024, where is the fall in its full force, I am Maya Sundukova. I'm a resident fellow, um, currently inactive in OLS, and I've been a researcher. So some of these crosses represent my career in academia. Some represent my moving countries. I migrated twice and started building my life almost from zero in a new country. And some represent other parts of myself. What I realized I don't control the slides. Malvika, can you press the next one? Yeah. And so we connect the events into stories when we speak, when we think about ourselves, I don't know, at the interview, or when we come to a friend to tell a story that bothers us. And sometimes life is hard and the stories are problematic and they can be overwhelming us. And at the point I was really very low in my life, feeling as a failed and failing academics and very bad with my mental health. So then thank you, Malvika. Then I slowly started recovering after some experiences, and OLS is special for me because it played instrumental role in creating the environment in which one can experience different attitudes and practices. And this slide is to remind you that our lives are multi-storied, and there is never just one black line in our stories. There are multiple colored lines. And another idea from the narrative therapy is that people are always responding to the difficulties. They're never passive recipients of anything hard that comes to them. And it's a reminder to all of us that everyone has the knowledge to deal with difficulties, skills, hopes, and dreams that we want to bring in action. Therefore, Malvika, please go. Instead of looking at one black line, one can search for alternative and preferred stories. And in my experience, what was helping to do advocacy for better research culture, to help those who feel worse than me. So that was mentoring to other PhD researchers who were under stress and anxiety during thesis, or mentoring in OLS, or just being a facilitator. So with time, it grew up in belonging to communities and making it even a bit more professional, like preparing the policy briefs on researcher mental health in different communities, in different countries, or even taking a master degree in narrative therapy and conducting a research project in OLS. So I think narrative therapy, I don't assume that you know all the multitudes of therapies, and I'm aware that because I've been last couple of years in this field, I might use some language that is not clearly understood by people who are not into mental health of researchers. But I wanted you to appreciate that there is some common things about open science movement and narrative therapy, because both they challenge the traditional hierarchy and they challenge the power. Both see others as experts of their own context. So I really appreciate in open science movement that OLS teaches, that there is really willingness to contextualize the practices. The people who live their lives or who do their projects, they know better what might work for them or not. And there is consideration of the knowledge, that knowledge can be different. And there is a democratization of the knowledge. There is engaging of the community. So going beyond research that is one-to-one or a group only, or a therapy is only one-to-one that happens in the closed cabinets. There is a sense of collaboration, co-research, and co-creation. So not individualism. And while in open science, we'll know that it's very normal to document your outputs and protocols and share them. Something similar happens in therapy because it uses documents that are written, for example, by a facilitator to the person or by participants. And then if there's agreement, they are shared with the wider community. So people who experience hardship or a challenge, thank you, they can share with other people who pass through something similar, and they can make meaningful contribution to other people. So it's what we did. We did a small project within OLS last year, and it is beyond this call, but we are going to create an event to speak about it. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is just to, again, recapitulate that in both approaches, we're trying to see things in larger context, that which relates to advocacy for me, that if the problem is not because of one individual, then we should try to act collectively on a systemic level to improve things. Next slide, please. Today we will be speaking about, I just did this. I just spoke about so many ideas and practices, and if there are also kind of a lot of frameworks, how one can work on self-care or on personal management. And lots of them are very useful. And of course, we encourage to try. What we'd like to highlight is that they're socially constructed, and meaning that also our cultural identities or abilities, it's all can be seen as constructed over time in relation where we are historically, socially, and politically. And in the next slide, I just wanted for you to watch maybe 5 minutes of this funny guy who is the founder of the narrative therapy, Micheal White. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us since 2008, but there are some videos of him. I'm aware that maybe some jokes are not really clear, but I hope also you will get some the main ideas.
Let me stop sharing because I think I haven't shared the sound.
Oh.
So once I share, I will make sure that the sound is audible. Second, computer audio and screen. Okay. Let me try. And if sorry. If you don't hear the sound, please let me know. Hope everything is gonna work.
Oh, no.
Let me try again. Okay. Share. Where is the sound? Oh, share sound. I found it. Made it. I made it. Okay.
Psychological needs. How many of you have psychological needs? Would you raise your hand if you have psychological needs? Okay. I'm not asking you to confess these, okay? Although that could be very interesting, but I just would like to know whether you have them or not. Okay, I can see many people agreeing. I'm not surprised because in Western culture, people have had psychological needs since 1929. Okay, they've been around since 1929, and they're increasingly popular. Today, more and more people have psychological needs. So this was a new understanding. Action is a surface manifestation of a psychological need, is a relatively new idea in the history of the world's culture. It's a novel idea. Okay. How many of you have relationship dynamics? Would you raise your hand if you have relationship dynamics? Okay. I'm not surprised at that either, because these have been around since the 1960s. And a lot of people have relationship dynamics these days. In fact, they're becoming increasingly popular. And relationship dynamics have been very successful. And so, now, I'm not saying that before the onset of relationship dynamics, I'm not saying that people were happier in their relationships with others. At times they were still miserable and in conflict. It wasn't constructed in terms of dynamics. Is that clear? That's a new construction. Okay. Earlier on we talked about personal properties like strengths. Well, how many of you have resources, personal resources? Okay. Okay. These have been around for longer than psychological needs. They've been around for a couple of 100 years or so. It's been a growing development, and the whole idea that we have these personal properties is associated with the development of modern liberal theory. Liberal theory provides the basis of the Western democratic state. Okay. Some of you may have studied liberal theory in your undergraduate training, in your courses on politics or whatever. And so one of the cornerstones of liberal theory was the preservation, the recognition and preservation of the individual's right to own property, to possess property. It also preserved the individual's right to capitalise on their property. To capitalise on their property by mining it, okay, and to bring to the surface these resources, okay, or by cultivating their property to improve its assets. Okay. Now, around the same time, there was this new idea that maybe there is the self is like personal property, that we have a self that's like personal property, okay, that we can own in the same way that we can own actual property, land, okay, and so we can actually mine the self to discover the resources and to bring those resources to the surface and to put them into circulation. So how many internal miners are there in this group? How many of you found yourself in situations where you had to dig deep to get in touch with your resources and to put them into circulation? Internal miners in the group? Mining tradition? Okay. People from Rhoros here? Okay. And how many internal farmers are there in the group? How many of you have been into self-cultivation? The cultivation of the self. You know, cultivating this quality or this asset. Okay? So you're the internal farmers of the group. Okay. So these are relatively new understandings. This is all part of a tradition that is often referred to as structuralist. Action in life is a surface manifestation of some element or essence that comes from the centre of who we are. Okay? And these ideas are now taken for granted. You know, it's just naturally assumed that action is a surface manifestation of strengths, resources, psychological needs, relationship dynamics, and so on. Are you clear about that? That is almost never questioned. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that they're bad ideas. Is that clear? I think some of those ideas are very beautiful ideas. Okay. But I think it's important to understand that these ideas have been developed and constructed in history and in culture. Okay. If we understand that, we're not chained to the ideas. We're not tied to them. We can think outside of them.
Thank you, Malvika, for sharing. I'm wondering if how the group, perceived this video. If someone wrote that they love this video, and yeah, if there was a particular idea from this video that struck a chord. You can also use emoji.
Now, I think we could definitely do this in the line 71, which is
right.
Yeah. So let's do the line 71. How did this make you feel? Any reflection?
Oh, the link, yeah, sure. And put in the chat. Well, this session is called Personal Management on the top of the pad. So this idea that we have this thing to manage, how many personal managers are there?
I think the first time you talked about it, Maya, actually, I'm going to share the screen so people know. So Maya shared this guy at the corner of the screen with a pinch of salt, and her reason for that all of these are constructed, and if we have to take all of these with a grain of salt. And she challenged me as a scientist that as a scientist I should always question when I learn a new theory or framework, is that this is a theory, a framework of many framework. One framework can work for me and may not work for others. So we used to have a different kind of training, and now we have a lot more open training because we want to take it with a pinch of salt. So for me, thank you so much, Maya, for doing that. I still have very strong memory of the day. So I do hope folks can put it in the chat or in the frama pad about what did it make you feel? Did you always think of constructs as constructs, or did you think that there was a pressure for you to use certain things like self-care and make it work for you?
Yeah, we are not under pressure to, share. What did you think about that video? It was just to warm up a bit to the ideas, to create the distance between what is taken for granted and the terms that we use. I don't think we use maybe some of the terms he mentioned, but there are others, like I mentioned, the idea that you can manage yourself or manage your time, like projects, or words that are now imposed by, like, I don't know, procrastination or some other things. What we going maybe to try, this is experimental, this is highly experimental, is to, I didn't tell you, I live in Spain, and in Spain, in every bar you can get tortilla de patatas, which is Spanish omelet, which is made of egg, beaten with fried onion and fried chopped potatoes. So they cut it in 8 and give you this piece of omelette with bread. So this is a dish, but what we think someone is raising a hand. Shall we take it, Malvika?
Finish your sentence, Maya, and then we call in the
Yeah. Just panic. Something is happening. So what we are going to try is to deconstruct the Spanish omelette. We are going to pull apart the ideas the beliefs and behind the concept of the self-care and related topic. It's a proposal for you to exercise questioning what is taken for granted in your context. I'm finished, Malika.
Thanks, Maya. Lubama?
Hi, I don't know if everybody can hear me, but I'm
Yes.
just going to answer your question. So for me, I guess the notion of self-care is not a novel idea, but I also come from a country that doesn't talk about self-care in a way that's comprehensive or holistic. Which is why in my undergrad, I made it a point to study psychology because I just wanted to understand um, how we better understand ourselves and ourselves in relation to the world around us. But as an academic, specifically, self care has become more important specifically because of the topic that I study, which is so heavy. And I study the colonial history behind the climate crisis. And so I look at how violence translates into specific kinds of bodies because of the unequal consequences of that. And so often I've described this as it feels as if I'm writing my own eulogy because of climate delay and all of these other things. So because of how I've come to be connected to my research, self-care has become so incredibly important to me because you have to balance your relation to the work and how you understand the work, and also how you understand the fact that you are a human first and foremost in relation to the work. And so I'm so delighted to be part of this conversation because I think it's so critical. And it's so important to remember that you are a human being first beyond anything. And yeah, so I just wanted to share the fact that even despite, we have different people who are connected through their research in different ways. But yeah, you are a human being, and human beings are carrying a lot at all times. And it is a time in the world where you're existing in polycrisis. So this is a very important topic, and I'm so glad that you are bringing this to the forefront of our conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, and the words are striking. You're a human being. It's incredible to hear about the research, such an important research, and which is really relates in many senses to what we're talking about. Yeah, how we proceed with this deconstruction. So we prepared a slide that was inviting you to do a self-reflection on what does self-care mean to you. We did do already the ice as an icebreaker. I would invite you maybe to take a minute or more to sit again with it to see if something different appeared to you. You don't need to share in the chat, just a moment. Yeah, maybe we can move forward with a question that is now not necessarily about yourself, but in general. I would invite you to share in the chat or in the Framapad. What does good self-care mean? maybe the question is not very clear, but it's like, how would you know if the person is taking a good self-care of themselves? How would you know? Could be examples, could be practices, actions, or ideas. Um,
Can you give an example, Maya?
well, I think for me, I said it's not about ourselves. Yeah, good self-care means is like leave your work at certain hour and don't think about it until next morning.
And not just eating ice cream.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, like eating only clean food is a good self-care, and
I'm going to connect it back to some of the response people had when they were talking about self-care is about emotional, mental, and physical well-being. So I imagine that the good health self-care is that enriches emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Yeah, I see some people are sharing in the chat as well, if you want to read through.
yeah, I was saying two indicators. One is more internal peace and how to manage the difficult days and still kind to yourself. Okay. So one can say good self-care means then it makes a person okay to have an internal peace. Okay. But what I'm wondering, what like other ideas then you had about being good at self-care? Um, yeah, internal farmers cultivating the self-compassion. Um, we have in the pad taking care of the body, eat good, exercise often, give hugs, and mind, separate work from family life. Yeah, this I kind of think so. Talk about your problems, but don't focus on them all the time. And spirit, connect with the God. He knows everything. That's very, very comprehensive. I'm wondering if we can get more ideas. It's just, can be something very small, but in order to this to work, we really like need you to share like even small ideas. I don't know, it can be what you wish you would do more for self-care for you. I assume people are thinking or writing or going to bed early and reading a few pages of book before falling asleep. To disconnect digitally. That's I'm taking it too. Oh, right. We're having more replies like taking guilt-free breaks, spending time meditating at the end of each day. That's yeah. Maybe you can think of your friends or family members who are inspiring examples for you of how one could take good self-care. Yeah, there is a kind of comment, disconnecting digitally. When will I do this? And two emojis. Well, then I have a question for you. What then does bad self-care mean? Think of your experience, or think of a person that, what would be the person's actions or ideas that you would be willing to say, listen, you should stop this. This is really hurting you. You are not taking good care of yourself. So for this, it looks like we have not getting proper sleep, bad sleeping and eating habits. Yeah. Not learning proper time management. I would add, maybe from my own experiences, not disconnecting from digital devices. It's really bad self-care in this moment, which comes in conflict. Yeah, maybe not able to take charge of my eating times. Mm, mm, mm. Let's see what we have in the part. We have some new good signs of self-care: taking guilt-free breaks, spending time meditating at the end of each day, staying in touch with my routine, getting regular sleep, regular. Okay, it's coming. Responses are coming through. And in bad self-care, what do we have? We have, I think bad self-care means that it might lead to bad habits, which will require further self-care actions. Saying yes to everything so you don't have time to do what you like, taking too much responsibilities, okay. Perhaps being too hard on yourself with taking care of your body, insisting on exercising when tired, focusing too much on clean eating and non-indulging. Using stress and adrenaline to push through. Yeah. Bad self-care is when you notice instead feelings of guilt, shame, or avoidance, and hinders your ability to fulfill responsibilities or maintain healthy relationships. Thank you for sharing. It's all inciting. Well, we have some material to work with, and the proposal would be why that we can go in breakout rooms and focus on some of these ideas that we got, both for good and bad, and try to see what's behind the idea. What are the background assumptions or taking for granted beliefs and ideas, or social discourses, I would say social and cultural discourses that make these ideas possible. I'll put in the chat, and I will ask Malvika to give me feedback if this formula of question is clear enough. Also, any other person would maybe reply me. Annika, unmute.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing, and I am creating some breakout room. But I just wanted to say one thing. So one of my mentors always said to me that when we acknowledge our limitation, we need to hold self-compassion as well, that we did our best. Life is sometimes hard, and it's fine to acknowledge that, oh, I did something, I have bad habits, but we should also acknowledge that we know where to change, and we can change. So I'm kind of like saying it to myself, and reminding you too that just because we're asking you to talk about bad self-care, it is not to shame anybody. We just want to put something in the forefront, which is what Maya was saying. What are we taking for granted? So this is why I want to just stop for a second and say the reason to remind isn't to shame, isn't to say that you're doing bad or wrong. It's just we are humans and things happen. I'm going to put some people in the breakout room. Just wanted to come back to your question, Maya, if it's clear. So the question is, what are the background assumption behind? Maya, can I ask you to give an example of that before I send people away?
Yeah, actually, I wanted really to thank you for highlighting that this is not to put guilt into people, but instead then to find ways, where moments in which we resisted to maybe some pressures from outside that led us to not be ideal in our self-care. Example could be, for example, for example, bad self-care, saying yes to everything so you don't have time to do what you like, taking too many responsibilities. I would be curious to see if one of the assumptions or belief would be that you have to take everything that is given to you, otherwise, I don't know, you will not be seen as productive or as a responsible person or friendly person. So
I can share
or
one. I think very similar to what Lulwam was saying. In my culture for a long time, now it's different, but people didn't talk about self-care. They didn't talk about therapy in a positive sense. They didn't, and therefore I felt that if I prioritize self-care, I was being selfish. Um, I didn't have a lot of people before my generation to learn from what self-care meant. But now things are changing. Now I think younger generations are inspiring us, and people are very open about talking about it, but it doesn't mean that the culture has changed, traditionally speaking. So for me, I would say my assumption was that if I prioritize my needs, I'm being selfish. But I've learned that prioritizing my need is to be prepared to give more to the community that I want to give to. So I would say, please take your time in the breakout room. I'm going to send you for about 15, 20 minutes. I will say 15 minutes. We'll come back and have some reflections. We're going to pause recording again. Okay. I'm gonna move us forward to come back to what we were talking about in the breakout room. Why this is a terminology that I resonate with, and I want to say that you don't have to resonate with it. Maybe there's other terminology that works, but the point of having this conversation in the context of open science or open leadership is to make sure that we can create a plan for ourselves and our team and community to take proactive, strategic, and systemic approach that cultivates well-being. I love Akaya Winwood's words, which says that you can't sustain a movement if you can't sustain yourself. If you're yourself burned out, if your energy is depleted, you can't do the work that you would like to do for the world, for yourself, for the community. It's a community work. It is community work to take care of each other, take care of self where we can. Like going back to what Lilwam was saying, it's not about, we shouldn't individualize systemic problems. We should acknowledge systemic problem and try to solve them as a community. It also starts with ensuring that we can be available for yourself, those we care for, and the work we want to do. So some of you said that we need to learn how to say no so we can make space for things that we do want to do. Saying no as young people can be very difficult. In certain contexts, it could be very difficult, but it's a habit that we need to cultivate, and we can help each other out. I'm still learning how to say no to some of the exciting things that are happening in my area. And I have to just say, okay, I cannot do it. It's not possible for me. But I know someone else who can do it and they will benefit from it. So, how can we lean in our community to see some changes that we alone cannot do? Um, This is one thing that I learned, which I really loved, that there is always something going on in the world around us, in our workplace, that may not be in our control. And just because some things are not under our control, we shouldn't forget that there are things that are indeed in our control. So the sphere of control is a concept that helps people focus on their own time and energy in things that they can control and we can control. Um, it doesn't mean that you're ignoring rest of it. It just means that you don't have control over other things. So how can we build that sense of energy and understand our own resilience? And once we figure it out, we can advocate for other people. So if let's say if I'm in a workplace where the workplace leadership is difficult, but I have my own team to take care of, how can I have my sense of agency so I can empower my team so they can perform and they can feel better? This is the same for the community. How can we cultivate a community which feels safe and good, even if rest of it around us is not under our control? And when we start doing all of these, it doesn't mean that we're controlling others or telling people what to do. It is about understanding and understanding and communicating what I would do to take care of myself, keep myself safe and healthy, both personally and professionally. So I actually took out something called boundary. Boundary is another social construct. So it's not about the boundary, right? You're not creating a boundary. You're creating understanding for yourself, so you know yourself better and you can advocate for yourself, which is the part of being an open leader. I want to hand it over to Maya. Maya, if you want to finish us off with this.
You want me to read this?
No, if there is anything that I kind of skipped over too fast.
No, I just I was enjoying your presentation actually.
So with that, I want to say that we have collected some of the toolkits, and I want to share it with reservation that these toolkits may not be exactly what you need. But if you do want to start exploring some of the toolkits, we have provided that in the Frama pad and also linked in the slide. Some of these are, sitting down and taking notes for yourself about condition that makes you happy and condition that frustrates you. How can you learn about them and communicate with others? There's also something called personal user manual, which you can build and share with your team, so they can help you build a condition that works for you and for your own team. But again, I'm sure you can find other toolkits that works better for you. So definitely remember the guy with the salt. These are all constructed. You can find your own construct that works best for you. Share what you think has worked for you in the Slack and with other people. And if we can hold more space where you can have this conversation, we're very happy to. And with that, I'm going to just open the floor for any question you might have, anything that made you feel unsure why we're having this conversation, or if there was anything you had hoped to hear here and we did not. So that would be our final closing.
Do we want to stop recording?
Oh yeah, we should stop recording. Thank you all who are listening, and we're just going to have a unrecorded conversation.